The Corinthos Empire, Paranoia, Loyalty, and the Federal Net. At the dark heart of Port Charles's ongoing narrative is the slow, agonizing fracturing of the Corinthos criminal organization. For decades, Sonny Corinthos has operated as the undisputed kingpin of the city's waterfront, insulated from prosecution by a combination of tight-ended loyalty, a brilliant legal defense team, and the silent enforcement of Jason Morgan. However, the current atmospheric pressure surrounding the Corinthos family has reached an all-time high, driven entirely by an aggressive, relentless federal investigation spearheaded by agents who view the dismantling of Sonny's infrastructure as their ultimate career achievement. This looming federal threat has fundamentally altered the psychological dynamics between the town's most iconic power couple, Sonny Corinthos and Carly Spencer. Sonny, carrying himself with the weary but highly defensive posture of a mob boss under siege, is slipping further into a dangerous state of isolation. The pressure from constant surveillance and the threat of an imminent federal indictment have aggravated his baseline paranoia, causing him to view even his closest allies with deep skepticism. He finds himself caught in a psychological vice, convinced that the people he has spent a lifetime protecting are beginning to construct escape hatches at his expense. This internal instability directly impacts his interactions with Carly, who remains the fiercely protective matriarch of the family legacy. Carly operates under an entirely different survival philosophy. She recognizes that the federal government is no longer playing by the old rules, and she is willing to take massive, independent risks to insulate her children, Michael, Jocelyn, and Christina, from the impending fallout. The friction between Sonny's demand for absolute, unquestioning loyalty and Carly's autonomous drive to protect her bloodline creates a volatile emotional standoff that threatens to tear the family apart before the government even files its paperwork. Meanwhile, trapped in the center of this legal and emotional battlefield is Jason Morgan. Dressed in his iconic black leather jacket, Jason embodies a silent, tortured vigil. He is a man caught in an impossible double life, forced to balance his deep-seated, unyielding personal code of honor with the crushing, hidden leverage being utilized against him by external authorities. Jason's current existence is defined by a profound sense of alienation. He must act as a human shield for the people he loves while keeping them at arm's length to prevent them from becoming collateral damage. His interactions with law enforcement figures, particularly Police Commissioner Anna Devane, highlight the tragic complexity of his position. Anna, torn between her professional oath to uphold the peace of Port Charles and her decades-long personal affection for Jason and the Spencer family, is desperately trying to untangle the web of secrets before a violent turf war erupts on the docks. This high-stakes legal chess game ensures that every conversation in Port Charles carries an underlying current of absolute desperation. The medical and corporate vortex, hidden agendas at GH and YLQ. Away from the docks and the dark corners of the Metro Court, the narrative shifts its lens to the sterile, brightly lit corridors of General Hospital and the executive boardrooms of YLQ. In Port Charles, the hospital is never merely a place of healing. It is a central hub for corporate espionage, familial betrayal, and hidden psychological desires. The current state of the hospital infrastructure is defined by an underlying corporate tension, driven by the expanding political and business ambitions of Drew Kane. Drew has underwent a radical psychological transformation over the past year, shifting away from his traditional heroic, selfless persona and embracing a more ruthless, calculation-driven approach to corporate warfare and public influence. His presence in the hospital corridors creates a volatile environment, particularly for Willow Tate. Willow finds herself walking an incredibly precarious emotional tightrope. Professionally dedicated to her nursing duties, her internal world is a battlefield of intense guilt and unvoiced anxieties. She is caught between her deep moral obligation to her husband, Michael Corinthos, and an undeniable, complicated pull toward Drew's commanding presence. Michael, completely unified in his focus to protect his family from the surrounding mob chaos, remains entirely oblivious to the subtle, dangerous psychological shifts occurring right under his nose. His absolute, blind trust in both his wife and his uncle adds a tragic layer of dramatic irony to the daytime landscape, creating a domestic ticking time bomb that threatens to completely shatter the foundation of the Quatermain dynasty. Concurrently, a clinical mystery is beginning to brew within the secure wings of General Hospital, driven by the sharp, investigative instincts of Dr. Portia Robinson. Portia has begun tracking subtle, highly sophisticated anomalies within the hospital's internal pharmacy tracking systems and patient admission logs. These are not simple clerical errors, they are the digital footprints of a covert operation operating deep within the administration. Portia's crusade for medical integrity leads her into a cautious alliance with Elizabeth Weber, who has noticed her own share of unusual nocturnal activities on the restricted medical floors. The narrative implications are clear. Someone with immense wealth and high-level administrative clearance is manipulating the resources of General Hospital to harbor a secret, potentially tied to the international espionage factions that have historically plagued the city. This medical mystery adds a layer of intellectual suspense that perfectly balances the raw emotional drama of the corporate and mob storylines. The next generation, legacy, grief, and the weight of secrets. The younger contingent of Port Charles is currently grappling with their own profound sense of isolation and the heavy psychological inheritance of their parents' choices. Gathering at local staples like Bobby's Diner, the youth of the town provide a grounded, emotionally raw counterweight to the grand corporate and criminal schemes of the older generation. At the center of this emotional landscape is Trina Robinson, who is meticulously navigating the profound, suffocating aftermath of immense personal grief. Trina's journey is one of the most compelling aspects of the current narrative tapestry. She is a young woman desperately trying to reclaim her academic ambitions and artistic identity while honoring a past that was violently stolen from her. Her presence serves as a reminder of the real, human cost of the chaos that constantly surrounds the city. Trina's closest confidant, Jocelyn Jacks, finds herself facing a completely different set of anxieties regarding her romantic future with Dex Heller. Dex's recent, highly controversial transition from a mob enforcer into the structured ranks of the Port Charles Police Department has created a massive rift in their dynamic. Jocelyn is paralyzed by a recurring fear that Dex's proximity to the badge will inevitably put him in the direct line of fire of Sonny's paranoid organization. She understands all too well that in Port Charles, stepping away from the mob is never as simple as changing careers. Trina acts as the crucial voice of wisdom for Jocelyn, warning her that keeping secrets and attempting to manipulate circumstances to protect a partner's safety almost always results in a devastating collapse of trust. Meanwhile, the emotional stakes are incredibly high for Christina Corinthos Davis, whose life has become a pressure cooker of biological and familial stress. Acting as a surrogate mother for her sister Molly Lansing Davis and T.J. Ashford, Christina's physical vulnerability is compounded exponentially by the legal jeopardy surrounding her father, Sonny. She feels increasingly isolated from her siblings, trapped in a protective bubble where everyone treats her like she is made of glass, while keeping her completely in the dark about the true danger facing the Corinthos Empire. Her romance with Blaze offers a temporary sanctuary of unconditional support, but even their harmony is threatened by the dark gravity of the Corinthos name. Blaze is acutely aware that associating with Sonny's bloodline always demands a heavy price, one that threatens to pull her own rising career into the quicksand of Port Charles's endless wars. Core character alliances and dynamic landscape to fully conceptualize the current multi-layered narrative framework of General Hospital without exposing individual plot points. It is highly useful to analyze how the central characters are aligned based on their motivations and immediate systemic conflicts.